Hey everybody, welcome back. Doc My Diet Podcast, episode number 11. Today's topic is the microbiome. Pretty new topic in the field of health and nutrition. Like most topics in the field of health and nutrition, the science is definitely not settled. Nutrition as a whole is a very new science. New research is coming out every day, but especially in terms of the microbiome, aka the gut, as you might have heard it been called before. Really new topic. Tons of fascinating research coming out about the microbiome. So let's get into it. First of all, what is the microbiome? So the microbiome is mainly located in our large and small intestines. And within the large and small intestines live trillions of bacteria. Basically, imagine a city full of people, New York City, Times Square, bustling, people walking back and forth, everybody going to work, going to meetings, everybody doing their job. So that's basically what's living inside of our large and small intestines in our microbiome, aka the gut. Now, there's actually more of these bacteria than there are human cells within our body. So technically speaking, we're actually more bacteria than we are human. Pretty crazy, right? Now, in a normal situation, normal healthy person, all these bacteria are working together harmoniously, living within harmony, doing their jobs. Like I said, imagine people going to work, going to meetings, everything's running smoothly. Now, everybody's microbiome is unique to them. Everybody has one, but each one is individual. It's based off of DNA, genetics. A lot of it is determined at birth, and then it's altered as we go through life, determined by our diet, by our lifestyle. These things can alter the gut microbiome. Now, there's good bacteria, which are known as being symbiotic bacteria, and there's also bad, which is known as being pathogenic. Like I mentioned, typically all these bacteria and fungi and viruses and parasites, they're all working together. But when they're not, when we have an imbalance, this is known as dysbiosis. And this dysbiosis leads to dis-ease of the gut and therefore the rest of the body. And we're going to get into how the gut affects the rest of the body. So today's podcasts are going to list the top 5 reasons that so far as we know, the gut is so important. So reason number 1 is that the gut has a huge role in developing our immune system. The vast majority of our immune system lives in the gut. And as I mentioned earlier, a large portion of this immune system and our gut microbiome is determined at birth. As we pass through the birth canal, that's our first exposure to these microbiotic structures and organisms that feed and develop our immune system. Without these bacteria developed and autoimmunity to these diseases and adaptive immunity would not be possible. We'd be more susceptible to disease. That's why it's so crucial within our early life that we're exposed to multiple different bacteria so we then can develop responses to attack these pathogens and develop a more efficient and effective immune system. So it begins at birth, and then also we get more bacteria through the mother's breast milk. And that's why it's so important, guys, that pregnant and breastfeeding mothers, that their diet be rich and really on point, because it sets the stage for that child's immune system. Now, obviously, as the child grows older, it's more on them because it depends on their diet and their environment, of course. But in the beginning, the mother really determines the foundation and the set point for each and every individual's immune system and microbiome. So in summary, the microbiome really hosts most of the immune system. So if the microbiome is not in good health, the immune system is not in good health, and therefore the human body is not in good health. So it's really important for the immune system, number 1. Number 2, it plays a huge role in our brain health. Now, researchers have linked dysbiosis, which once again is dysregulation, dysfunction of the gut, to anxiety, depression, even Alzheimer's, and there's also links to autism as well when the gut is in dysbiosis. And the reason for that is that the gut produces neurotransmitters like serotonin, and serotonin is heavily involved in the neural pathways that lead to depression and anxiety that helps form that gut-brain axis. There's actually a really cool study They took two groups of rats. Okay, one group of rats had really bad anxiety. The other group showed traits of bravery and fearlessness, basically anxiety free. What they did was they switched their microbiomes. They took one microbiome from the anxious rat, gave it to the brave and fearless rat, and swapped. Guess what happened? The rats that once had anxiety now show traits of being brave and fearless, and the rats that once were brave and fearless now show traits of being more anxious. So that just goes to show you how our gut really shapes our behavior and how we think and how we move through the world. Our thoughts, our perceptions, our emotions, really dependent on the gut. That's where that old term, I have a gut feeling about this, is probably derived from. If you have a feelings of anxiety and depression, oftentimes it's coming from our gut, because the gut produces more serotonin than anything else in our bodies. So that really controls our anxiety, our depression, our mood, our feelings. All that comes from the gut. Pretty cool rat study. I like to reference that pretty often. Really illuminates how important and how powerful the gut really is. Now, reason number 3, more applicable to things we've been talking about thus far in this podcast series, is that the gut really controls our ability to gain weight, lose weight, whether or not we're more susceptible to obesity, susceptible to becoming overweight, because the gut produces a lot of peptides, a lot of hormones that control our hunger levels and also control what foods we crave. So if we are in dysbiosis, those hormones are dysregulated and our hunger levels go crazy, our cravings go crazy, and that sets us up for disaster. That sets us up for weight gain, sets us up for being overweight and becoming obese. Now, you might know that after binge drinking, the next day you wake up, not only are you feeling like crap, but you're also craving a bunch of high calorie, greasy foods. That's because your gut microbiome is all thrown off. It's all dysregulated. There's no hormones regulating your hunger levels and no hormones regulating your cravings anymore, because you destroyed them the night before by drinking all this alcohol, which essentially is poison, and poison for our stomach and our gut and our microbiome. Reason number 4, the microbiome is so important. Again, if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, you realize how important inflammation is. So in people with dysbiosis, in people who are dysregulated in terms of their gut microbiome, they have high levels of inflammatory markers. These markers include interleukin, tumor necrosis factor, and C-reactive protein, to name a few. They're always higher in people with dysbiosis because they're inflamed. These markers represent inflammation. Now, there's a study that shows those people who take probiotic supplements to help improve their gut health, guess what? Inflammation comes down. This is why I always say that you can't lose weight until you reduce inflammation. And a great way to reduce inflammation is to heal the gut. That's why food is so much more than just carbs, proteins, fats, and calories. What you eat affects your gut microbiome and therefore affects your overall health and inflammation. So all those bro science people, and if it fits your macro bros, and a calorie is a calorie, they're all disillusioned and intellectually lazy. You need to pay attention to how the food you eat affects your gut. You need to pay attention to how the food you eat affects your gut. It isn't just calories in, calories out. Like I said, that's part of the equation, a big part, but looking at that and stopping there is intellectually lazy, and a lot of people are guilty of that. Now, reason number 5, the gut is so important, is that there's a huge correlation between gut dysbiosis and autoimmune disease. In fact, many experts believe that you really can't have autoimmune disease unless you have a gut that is dysfunctional. It's really like a prerequisite for autoimmune disease. And the reason for that is going back to that leaky gut hypothesis. If the gut isn't digesting food properly, it's going to leak out into the bloodstream. The body's going to recognize these foreign particles as bad, as enemies, and it's going to attack them and try and get rid of it. And eventually, when that response is triggered over and over and over and over again throughout a lifetime, the body starts attacking its own tissues. And that's where we get the term autoimmune in autoimmune because it's auto attacking, it's attacking itself. That's what auto means. In addition to that, going back to reason number 3 for the weight loss, if you have dysbiosis, you're not going to be able to break down food properly. You're not going to be able to break down meats and vegetables properly, and then you're going to have dysfunction, and you're not going to have proper digestion, and improper digestion is going to lead to weight gain in itself. So again, to summarize the top 5 reasons, in my opinion, as far as we know so far, as to why the gut microbiome is so important. Reason number 1, huge impact on the immune system. Reason number 2 was the brain health was another major factor, depression and anxiety. Reason number 3 was the weight gain, huge. Number 4, the most important, inflammation. Number 5, autoimmune disease. Now, guys, I can't preach how important the gut is enough to you. It's a new field of study. So far, what we know, the diseases and conditions that are correlated to gut dysbiosis include constipation, diarrhea, IBS, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, depression, anxiety, eczema, psoriasis, and a plethora of autoimmune diseases. So what do? How do we take care of our gut? Well, we need to eat the foods that nourish the gut. Some of those foods include onions, artichokes, asparagus, garlic, berries. When we're drinking, try and stick to a good, clean red wine as opposed to the other types of wine, other types of alcohol. Obviously, we're not going to be perfect, but try and stick to a good red wine as often as you can. Include bone broth in your diet. And most importantly, I think, including your diet rich in fermented foods. What does that mean? That means kimchi, kefir, sauerkraut, yogurt, to help replenish our flora with prebiotic fiber that helps support a good, healthy, bacteria-filled gut. And we also want to have a diet that's diverse in a diverse array of different populations of bacteria. That's one of the biggest proponents, biggest markers of a healthy gut is a diverse gut. So we want to have a rich diet, varied diet. You don't want to eat the same thing every day. And also, you really want to take a good probiotic and different probiotics throughout the year. You want to cycle them because, once again, you want to have different strains and different populations of bacteria to keep that little city living inside of you functioning harmoniously. What we should avoid big time, need to avoid antibiotics when we can. I understand they're necessary sometimes, but when we take an antibiotic, what that does is it totally annihilates, takes an atom bomb to our gut microbiome, wipes out the good guys, the bad guys, everything in between. And then it's really hard to rebuild it after that. And it's going to lead to major gut dysbiosis. Also want to avoid stress, avoid gluten, processed foods, refined sugar, excessive alcohol, poor sleep, and lack of exercise. All those things lead to an unhealthy gut, which will lead to an unhealthy body. So again, hope this podcast was helpful. We're just starting to scratch the surface when it comes to gut health. Please feel free to subscribe on YouTube. I'm on Apple Podcasts. Follow me on Instagram at DocMayDiet. Also, SoundCloud, I believe, as well. And I appreciate all the feedback so far. It's been a pleasure. See you guys next week.